Oh, ZAC EFRON, the final chapter. Amazing. And in just a minute, we'll begin our Q&A with our director and actors. So if you have any questions, please send them into the chat box right now. And though we can't actually hear your applause right now, it is not too late to show your appreciation for Zac Efron and this entire cast by making a contribution at tokentheater.net and clicking on the Support Us link at the top of the page. As I mentioned earlier, Token Theater stands with victims of AAPI hate crimes. And in support of that, half of your donation for this performance will be going to support members of the AAPI community who have suffered verbal and physical attacks just for being Asian. And of course, the other half will go to making a full-scale production of Zac Efron possible. So know that any contribution at any amount right now is going to be going for great causes. So do reach us at tokentheater.net. And I see we've got our whole company out here now for our Q&A. Let me open up my screen so I can see all your beautiful faces. Oh, thank you, thank you. Oh, Lisa Tejero here and Alan Muraoka and Wai Yim, I see. Okay, we're still waiting for Hansel Tan. Oh, okay, that must be, hi guys, congratulations, wonderful job. Let me begin with, Alan, let me begin with you. Alan Muraoka is not only an actor with a long resume, he's also a director. And thank you, Alan, for directing both parts 2 and 3 of Zac Efron. Let me ask you, what attracted you to Zac Efron, to doing this piece?
Well, what I loved about it is that there really isn't that many Asian American comedies out there with two strong three-dimensional characters. And so when I read this for the very first time, this was months and months and months ago, I was laughing out loud. And David Rhee asked me if I could do the first one, and I wasn't available, unfortunately. But it really sort of the play stuck in my mind. And so when we had the second installment of it, and he asked me to do it, I was like, yes, of course I'll do it. Of course I'll do it. And yeah, and when this third one came along, Hansel and I are both friends, colleagues, and I'm a big fan of his work. And so I was like, wow. If there ever was a role that was meant for somebody, it was David and Hansel. So I was very excited, and he read it, and he was like, yes, I will do this. And yeah, and what was sort of great about it was when we were talking to David Rhee, the real David Rhee, about the piece, he was wearing a shirt very similar to what Hansel was wearing now. Yes. I was like, okay, well, we know what our wardrobe is, so fantastic. So check that off the list. And I knew that Hansel had this wardrobe, so it was a no-brainer, really.
Wonderful. Well, Hansel, let me ask you, now you hail from Singapore, representing Singapore, that's wonderful, and have performed internationally. I love that last scene. This is a comedy, and yet the last scene we saw was just so intense. How was that? To me, it seemed like a beautiful, beautiful, meaty scene. How was that for you, being able to do that kind of work?
It's always lovely to get to jump into something that doesn't always find voice, that doesn't always find form in such a eloquent and wonderfully written way. And you know, there are all these complicated feelings in the queer Asian American community that aren't necessarily given the light of day. And I think the work that David and Wai have brought forth really navigates some really thorny issues so beautifully. And it resonates so strongly, even when I read it for myself, saying that this is so close to home. I didn't have to dig too far under the surface to let some of these concepts surface, come up to the fore. So it was really, really quite a treat. Thank you.
Oh, it was a pleasure to see. I just love it. It's just us as an audience as well to be able to see two characters, Asian characters, going at it like that. And yes, giving rise to so many things that maybe we haven't thought of, but like, oh yeah. Let me ask you why, what really resonated, one line, poor man's smile. Now, Wai Yim, of course, playing Wai, but also co-writer of our script. Can you tell us, poor man's smile, I know exactly what that is, and I hadn't heard that before. Can you tell me about the evolution of that finding its way into the script and that whole beautiful monologue?
that monologue, David should take full credit, but we always talk about how we pretend to be, we're okay, we smile through everything, we nod our head, and just kind of like, it's all good. And no matter how we try to present this fabulous face, and there's always still some kind of hurt deep down that we try to cover it up. So when he wrote that scene, I was just so pleased. It's perfect. So yeah.
And why? Should I tell people you actually have your own YouTube channel, right? I mean, there's such a symbiotic thing, a copacetic thing here. Why and why?
Yes, I do have a Tejero Tube channel. And when David started to write the show, it was not anything YouTube, like none. There's no YouTube-ness in it. And then he saw one of my silly live episode, and then he just literally put the whole thing in there. And I was like, what are you doing? But then through that kind of trying to get subscriber and trying to, because he knows who I am in a way, and I'm this ultra fabulous person now that comes over YouTube and great writing material. So then he just go with it, and it become the script. So yeah.
And what's great about it is that when we were going through the script, we would finish a scene and we'd be like, okay, what's real? What's real, David? What's real Wai? And it's made up. And so it really was this great sort of like entree into their lives, like their personal lives, and then Wai would be like, no, that's not real. Never happened.
I just feel like a third wheel to the relationship between David and Wai, and I'm just imagining in my head that everything on the script is real, and I don't want to know if it's fiction or real, but I'm just going to assume it's real because that feels better for me, and I almost want it so badly to be real.
Well, that leads me to Lisa Tejero in terms of the real, because Lisa has acted across the country. I mean, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and as well as Broadway, Circle in the Square mentioned doing Metamorphosis, as well as many theaters here in the Midwest. And Lisa, Wai's mother, right? I was like, okay, so what's it like playing, real, and you actually know the person. How was that playing Wai's mom?
Well, first off, I couldn't be old enough to be Wai's mom. I just had to put that out there. But we did promos, teasers for this, and in it, I think I just was like, I play Wai's mom, and he put in a picture of his mother, and I had already sort of decided to wear an outfit that was like that, and one of the things I'm really happy about or relieved is that she doesn't speak English. So even if she sees this, my hope is that Mama Yim won't be mad at me. But I don't know. Are you going to show it to her, Wai?
I mean, I can show it to her. I don't think she would mind.
I don't know. Let's talk about that later.
So no, that's not me. That's not me.
Well, it's a theatricalized. It's a very theatricalized version,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that thing also of when I wanted to honor the fact that she doesn't speak English, and that she really is a foreigner, not only in another land, but almost all of a sudden in her own family, and. So I thought it was important to go for the dialect, but it's always a tricky thing, and it's sort of like, I'm also like, it's pandemic. My muscles don't look as toned as Hansel's, so my dialect is just like oh yeah. But I hope I honored the spirit of who she wants. And that was sort of, and you know, how lucky that I know who I'm playing. I just play his mom. I don't have a lot of my work. My character work is already done, and that feels like a cheat, but how fun to do anyway.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've got a question here on the screen that just popped. Oh, I lost it already. I did not catch that. Oh, here we. Okay. Will we see more about David at some point, and why aren't there more roles like this out there for Asian actors? I'll take the first one first, because will we see more about David at some point? There were a lot of loose ends left at the end of this, and this was the final chapter, and I think I should clarify. This is the final chapter of our Zoom presentation of ZAC EFRON. There are a lot of loose ends and much more of David and Wai and ZAC EFRON. And does why and who's that? Maybe Nathan. A lot of things, and that's what we all have to look forward to in a full-scale production. So it makes it all the more important for you to connect with us right now by going to tokentheater.net and clicking on the support us button, because half of what we earn tonight is going to go to support victims of AAPI violence, and the other half will make possible a full-scale production. So we will indeed see what else has happened to David. And then I've already forgotten what the other part of the question was, but I have other questions in my mind. Oh, okay. Why aren't there more roles out there for Asian actors like this? You know, and I think that's a great point, because there's been such a huge change in this. And Lisa, I actually wanted to direct this to you, because you and I have worked together for decades, and we've seen the changes. And you've been out there on the front lines, and I know you just we're working on a terrific project just before COVID shut everything down. And I think that kind of speaks to why aren't there more roles like this. It seems like more are being created because they haven't been there before.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at this question now. I understand the frustration and the desire for that, but and I think Cheryl will possibly agree with me that compared to what was out there when I first met Cheryl a few decades ago, we played each other's sisters, daughters, mothers back and forth. Like we were the only two in town. And even the roles you got had a very distinct flavor often. Where you were sort of lucky and able to branch out was in more experimental theater and classics, oddly enough. There seems to be a time limit on racism in Shakespeare or Greeks, like people just accept it. And so it was very limited. Like the fact that people are still here of a certain era is a testament to their perseverance, because it's slim now, but it is opening up very quickly. And things like this catapult that, because now we're in charge of the content, right? We're not being a token for another story. We are in the front of the story, and people are writing their own stories now. And people are, there's a talent pool that is bigger than just two Asian women in Chicago.
Right.
And not to say that there were more, I don't want to denigrate that, but for quite honestly, it was pretty much you and me for a good 7 years. You know, it's hard to sustain that. So the fact that this is being done
in a company,
right?
It's very exciting. And you know, and interestingly, also
great.
The fact that we're in COVID is interesting, because because we're doing this online, we have access to an audience that would never have seen token theater and this piece at this point of its development across the country, potentially around the world, because of streaming. So that's also very exciting. Helen,
the accessibility to content right now is wonderful, and the fact that this is coming in at this point, so spread it. If you're watching and you enjoyed this, pass it on. Get on your social media and put it on the forefront. So we get a lot of people coming Saturday, whether they donate or not, just that they know this is happening. And then the more we see it happening, to your question, then there will be even more roles.
Alan, I wanted to get your perspective on this as well, because as an actor and a director, do directors have even more ability to get those stories out there? Or do you have a perspective on that?
Well, what I've seen in the last 5 years or so is that more regional theaters are starting to discover our stories and are conscious about it and want to help produce them. And so now we have a new generation of playwrights that are just budding. Like when I was growing up, it was it was David Henry Wong. There was like maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 that were sort of in the cycle of things, and then it kind of died off. And now I think there's this wonderful resurgence that's happening, and I think people are much more conscious of it now. Regional theaters are much more conscious of it now, and trying to at least help balance the playing field of diversity within their seasons. And I think I think as we move forward, you're going to see more of that. And I think you're also going to start to see more of non-traditional casting in plays, and that are, that can sort of support that. I think directors are much more aware of that now, and producers, and playwrights. And so I think we're going to start to see a little bit more of that kind of inclusion. Definitely regionally. Hopefully, Broadway is starting that journey as well. It still has a little bit ways to go, but everybody is sort of on the right path at least.
That's wonderful. Well, this has been just a wonderful opportunity for our viewers to hear your input from the casting director. And we want to thank all of you for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, if you were laughing, if you were like really thinking about it, as Lisa said, pass this around, send out the link, let your friends know, because potentially we can reach out across the country with ZAC EFRON. And you do make a call of support also, because then we can see the entire story in a full production. So thank you very much, and good night. And we'll be back Saturday evening, 7:30 Central Time. That's 8:30 Eastern Time. We'll be doing it again. So that's what you're sending the link up for, so they could watch it again. Or you could tune in again. So good night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.